Helena Jonsdottir loved the ragged breathing of steam that drifted across the lava field outside her studio window. On clear mornings, the Hellesejodi Goda thermal plant puffed gently against a backdrop of snow-dusted moss and black basalt, like some giant knitting machine stitching clouds to the sky. To Helena, a designer of Icelandic lopapísesas, the rhythmic hiss and rumble had always sounded comforting, a subterranean lullaby pulsing beneath the Reykjavik art district where she lived and worked. This winter, however, comfort had given way to unease. She first noticed the oddity 3 weeks before the solstice, while sketching a yoked pattern meant to evoke volcanic vents. Eleanor used a grid notebook and a clutch of coloured pencils. The squares might become knit two purgatory or purl one hope, depending on her mood, but she prided herself on clarity. That day, she was shading crimson triangles, stylized flames, when she realized that triangles were arranging themselves into something definite and deliberate, something she had not intended. She unexpectedly blinked. The 4 symbols were unmistakably runic. Thorn. Orden. As her grandmother had taught her to sound them out when she was 8, during a summer spent cataloguing gravestones on Freyja Island. The runes formed the word thunun, an archaic term for stress or strain, the tension in a bowstring just before it snaps. Helena rubbed the letters with an eraser, redrew the flames in a different order, and went to refill her coffee. When she sat down again, the runes were back, this time woven deeper into the lattice of stitches, as though the pattern itself insisted on speaking. She could have dismissed a single coincidence. But the following evening another quartet appeared, Herlex Kahila and Vinum, Turend or Skartik, I Kahila Skartik, I Kahila, came or T Skartik. Then a third set, Vi Kahila, Skartakila, Herlex Kahila, Vi Kahila, Vi Kahila, I Kahila, Vi Kahila, stress rent. Iron middle. It's just stray symmetry, she muttered, yet a chill threaded through her veins. This was not the whimsical mythology tourist shops painted on T-shirts. These were elder Futhark symbols, 5 centuries older than the Icelandic Commonwealth, surfacing of their own accord inside a contemporary knitting chart. Helena opened her laptop and transferred the hand-drawn grid into Stitchwitch, her charting software. Intending to break whatever imaginative spell had gripped her. She randomized the flame motifs, offset the repeats, even changed the color palette from magma reds to aurora greens. But each time she zoomed out, the runes reassembled themselves, subtly shifted, always legible, and each time new words formed sif, meaning in law, then bach, ring, then hvel, wheel. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she photographed every iteration and sent them to the one person she trusted implicitly, her grandmother Ragna, former professor of folklore at Hauskeioli Ugdoslands, now a spry octogenarian who still translated Eddas for fun. Ragna phoned before dawn. "Helena, dear, do you know what you've got? I was hoping you would tell me. These are not random. It's a cipher variations on the Old Norse Galdrastafir tradition. Except arranged in sequence like a prophecy. A prophecy of what? I'm not sure yet, but look at the verbs, strain, tear, sever, quench, and the nouns, core, ring, wheel. Something beneath us, something circular, held in tension. My gut says it concerns the geothermal plant you love to sketch. Helena swallowed. Heli's Heiderdi provided hot water to 2/3 of Iceland. If something happened to those turbines in the dead of winter, Reykjavik would freeze. I'm coming over, Ragnar said. Keep the kettle warm. They spent the morning cross-referencing runic formulas. Ragnar spread photocopies of runestones across Helena's work table. Helena laid translucent knitting charts on top. Where the faint outlines aligned, phrases emerged. Elitua Giziotrom Brennur. The fire of the mind burns in fetters. Lesi sid Hiotrona vis Yatel Huhuiten Kirtle. Loose the fetters at the heartbeat of the earth. Fetters. Ragnar tapped the word. Chains. If the fire is chained, freeing it would release pressure. Do you know the maximum PSI those steam wells hold? Helena did not, but she texted someone who would. Ari Mara Sigurdsson, her oldest friend, now a hydrothermal engineer on the Helaisha night shift. Ari's reply arrived minutes later. Around 235 bar. Why? Helena hesitated, unsure how to compress portents, runes and family folklore into a single message. She typed back. Grandma thinks somebody might try to blow the locks on the main separator. Can we meet? 3 dots pulsed, then disappeared. 8 minutes passed before Ari's phone rang her directly. That's classified equipment, he said without greeting. Who told you about the locks? No one. It's complicated. Helena, if you know something relevant to plant security, you must report it properly. Social media rumors are already bad enough. Climate protesters, privatization backlash, all that. Please just come to the studio, she whispered. Ari arrived with his field laptop and an expression caught between skepticism and genuine worry. By noon, all 3 of them, designer, engineer, folklorists, were hunched over Helena's knitting software as though it were a bomb schematic. Ari listened while Ragnar translated the runic chains, and Helena demonstrated how every attempt to alter the pattern only produced new warnings. Maybe it's the algorithm, Ari offered. Some Easter egg filter hidden in the software. I wrote Stitch Witch myself, Helena said. No Easter eggs. And the symbols replicate in pencil, too. I'm being haunted by a pattern that writes itself. Ari pinched the bridge of his nose. Okay. If I humor the premise that these runes predict sabotage, do they give a time? Look, Helena said, scrolling down the chart. After every 16-row repeat, a single-colored stitch glowed bright gold, like a bead woven into wool. Counting chart rows was second nature to her. 16 stitches across, 24 rows down, the gold stitch always on row 23. Ragnar measured intervals. 16, 24, 23. These aren't arbitrary. It's the date format for 16/24/23. But there is no 24th month. Unless 16 refers to day, 24 to hour, 23 to minute, Ari said. 16 December at 24:23, except military time rolls at 23:59. They puzzled until dusk, finally aligning the sequence with the solstice. December 21st carried 24 hours of darkness in Iceland if you rounded civil twilight, 23 minutes past midnight on the solstice, Earth's axial heartbeat. That's 11 days from now, Ari murmured. Shift change. Only skeleton crew on duty. He stood and paced. We've had unverified threats from a fringe eco-group called Verdunter Dareth Safeguard. They argue geothermal drilling agitates volcanic faults. Most are peaceful, but a splinter faction wants spectacle. We've flagged chatter about disabling reinjection pumps to trigger surface vents. If separators crack, superheated brine could flood the turbine hall. Worst case, pressure could blow a 5-meter crater and spew acid steam over Reykjavik's watershed. Helena's stomach lurched. People would die. They'd freeze first. Heating conduits would go offline. So you'll call the police? Ari exhaled. Security is already on alert, but management won't panic the public without proof. Anonymous runes in a knitting pattern? They'd laugh me out of the operations room. Helena felt the runes vibrating behind her eyelids. They were more than anonymous. They were insistent, alive. Then we need proof. Ragnar plucked at her granddaughter's sleeve. The runes keep reshaping to ensure the message is seen. Perhaps we can coax them for specifics, get coordinates. How? Helena asked. Let them finish the pattern. Helena swallowed. She had been resisting the design's pull, afraid of what might emerge. But if completing the yoke meant saving lives, she would surrender. She grabbed her largest circular needles and cast on 240 stitches of undyed Alaphos lopi, the same yarn her great-grandmother used during the knitting boom after World War II. Each stitch felt like heartbeat percussion as Ragnar whispered the runes in cadence. By dawn, a full yoke blossomed from Helena's needles. Obsidian triangles rimmed in blood orange, encircling the shoulders like teeth of a subterranean wolf. Embedded between rows were sequences of dark blue and pale grey binary code, I realized. Once he photographed the knitting and ran it through an ASCII converter. The output scrolled, 64 twine 19 N21 23 45Y, service tunnel B3, air intake grill, solstice, 23 minute. Ari cursed softly. That's a restricted duct that bypasses motion sensors. Whoever fed you this knows our weak spot. No, Helena said, not whoever, whatever. She felt a tingling in her fingertips, as though geothermal microtremors radiated upward through the wool. The garment weighed almost nothing, but she sensed mass like holding a scroll authored by magma itself. The next 10 days blurred. Ari filed an internal incident under credible threat, earning half-hearted approval to augment security on the solstice. He arranged passes for Helena and Ragnar under the guise of consulting on a cultural installation for the visitor center. Meanwhile, Helena published a teaser of the pattern on her blog, naming it Elfotot Fire Fetters, and inviting global knitters to join a solstice knit-along. She withheld the runic rose, but tens of thousands downloaded the chart anyway, charmed by photographs of the unfinished yoke draped over basalt. Attention, Helena hoped, might deter sabotage. Saboteurs preferred darkness. Yet as the longest night approached, Reykjavik felt unusually hushed. Snow muffled windshield wipers, steam drifted thicker, and newspapers fixated on Parliament scandals rather than energy infrastructure. The runes in Helena's dreams turned midnight red. Solstice Eve arrived with a hard frost that glazed every volcanic pebble. Ari drove the women up Route 1, headlights carving tunnels through swirling snow. Helisaeddi's cooling towers emerged like cathedrals in a whiteout, each haloed by pale sodium lights. Helena wore the completed lopapesa under her parka, runes resting against her skin like braille. Inside the security vestibule, they donned helmets and visitor badges. Ari handed them comms earpieces, then led them past humming heat exchangers toward Control Room South, a glass pod elevated over the turbine hall. The usual staff of 8 was reduced to 4. Budgets were tight near Christmas. 2 technicians tracked output graphs. 1 guard nursed coffee. A supervisor watched radar for storm systems that might bury pipes. Ari introduced Helena and Ragnar as artists surveying acoustic profiles for a gallery piece. Close enough to truth, he said, because the plant did sing if you listened. Their presence drew mild curiosity, nothing more. 2340. Steam curled against panoramic windows, imprinting ghostly shapes. Helena stared down at the braided maze of pipes. Somewhere beneath that lattice lurked Tunnel B3, the coordinates knitted into her yoke, 2348. A low tremor shook the gantry. Normal, the supervisor said. Routine venting cycle, 2356. Security cameras flickered. Only half a second, but enough for Ari to swear. He brought up diagnostics. Someone had pinged the network from inside the perimeter, 2357. Helena's chest burned. She unzipped her parka, revealing the yoke. The supervisor raised an eyebrow, perhaps thinking her sudden striptease eccentric, but Ari's focus never left the screen. 2359. Ragnar touched Helena's shoulder. It begins. The lights dimmed as systems rerouted power. A klaxon beeped. Subdued equipment fault in air intake grill B3. Pressure readings spiked. The supervisor barked into a handset. Inspection team to level -2. But Ari grabbed the handset. Negative. We need immediate lockdown of separator valves. Remote override now. Confusion crackled. Hierarchy warred with instinct. The supervisor hesitated. That precious half-second sabotage needs. Helena didn't think. She acted. She sprinted toward the emergency staircase, Ragnar close behind. Arya cursed, slapped override icons manually, then bolted after them. The stairwell plunged 4 stories into metallic gloom. Heat and chemical tang rushed upward. Red strobes painted pipes like arteries. Helena's boots slipped on condensation, but she ran faster, guided by the pulse of wool against her sternum. The yoke seemed almost incandescent in the alarm light. A junction ahead. Left arrow, Turbine Bay 1, right arrow, service tunnels. She veered right. Ragnar, breathless but unbroken, recited a stave. Fiotur el skalle sletna, let not the fire's chain be severed. Her voice echoed like the chants of long-dead Gothi. They reached a mesh gate padlocked with an RFID latch. Ari swiped his badge. It blinked red. Someone revoked my clearance. Helena's gaze fell to her knitting tote, still slung across her body. Aluminum knitting needles protruded. Without thinking, she extracted 2 size 7 double points and jammed them into the gap between latch and housing. Years of manipulating tough Icelandic wool had hardened her wrists. She twisted. The casing cracked with a spark. Circuits shorted, and the lock popped open. Remind me never to underestimate craft, Ari muttered, pushing the gate wide. Tanar B3 exhaled scalding air. They crouched, half running. Ahead, flashlights bobbed. 2 figures in insulated coveralls, tool satchels slung like saboteurs' bandoliers. One knelt at a control manifold attaching a device that resembled a dentist's drill to the steel housing. Helena's mind snapped photos. The drill would pierce the separator wall, pressure would spike, steam explosion, chain reaction. She knew nothing about metallurgy or fluid dynamics, but the runes screamed inside her skull. Now! Stop! Ari yelled. The intruders spun. One yanked off goggles, revealing a young woman with radical dreadlocks, cheeks smeared in geotherm ash like war paint. For the earth! She shouted, and slammed her hand on the drill's trigger. The diamond bits snarled. Ari lunged, tackling her partner. The drill wobbled, carving sparks. Helena felt the pressure in her ears. She sprinted toward the woman, knitting needles clutched like stakes. Years ago she would have folded under confrontation, but not tonight. She jabbed the needle into the drill's trigger guard, prying upward. The bit screeched and jammed. The saboteur shoved Helena, knocking her against the manifold, but the momentum yanked the drill free. It clattered onto grating, bit snapped, session howled, loud enough to bruise ribs. Pressure surge aborted, auto seals engaging. Valves thundered shut across the separator. Superheated brine slammed against reinforced barriers, but the chain held. Within seconds, uniformed security flooded the tunnel, weapons trained. The saboteurs dropped their satchels. Helena sagged to her knees. Ari helped her stand. Steam condensed in his hair like silver. Above them, Ragni traced a rune in the air. Hexagurk Mida, the human. The fire of the mind, she whispered, can forge or destroy. Police escorted everyone topside. The saboteurs were sullen but uninjured. The supervising engineer, who had hesitated, shook Ari's hand, promising to upgrade protocols. Reporters swarmed the access road by 4 a.m., drawn by police scanners. They snapped photos of Helena's soot-stained Lopapesa. The crimson runes looked even more vibrant against charcoal wool. A journalist asked what designer label it was. It's not a label, Helena said. It's a warning and a promise. 3 days later, national headlines read, Knitted, Property Foils, Gather Mel Attack. Online forums erupted. Conspiracy theorists battled fiber artists in comment threads. Orders for Helena's pattern exploded. 70,000 downloads in 48 hours. She donated all proceeds to upgrade Helisadis' community safety fund. Software engineers dissected Stitch Witcher's code, searching for hidden scripts. They found none. Helena even shared the original notebook sketches. but independent analysts confirmed the runes did not appear on paper until photographed, as though the camera captured possibilities invisible to graphite. The phenomenon defied explanation, which satisfied Ragnar immensely. Mystery, she told a radio host, is the best guarantee against complacency. On New Year's Eve, as fireworks fanned over Reykjavik, Helena sat alone in her studio knitting a miniature version of the yoke for Ari's newborn niece. Just before midnight, she noticed an extra stitch shimmering in the lower border, one she did not recall adding. She leaned closer. "Big Bag Gaz Dawn," she smiled. The rune foretold awakening, the first light after the longest night. Outside, Helisiades towers glowed steady, stitched forever into the winter sky. The earth's heartbeat wrapped once more in unbroken wool.